Welcome, foolish mortals, to the Halloween edition of the Coaster Challenge podcast. And here are your hosts, David Cantu, Jenna Gazelle.
Hey, how's it going, Jenna?
Great, David. How's it going?
It's going good, going good. Happy end of September.
Ooh, we're getting closer to Halloween.
October is around the corner, but the Halloween season has already begun, and we are really, the parks this year have really gone on. I wouldn't just say parks. I would say Halloween. I think everybody this year is really in the Halloween spirit, more than I've ever seen before, because I will tell you, last year was really hard because there was really nothing.
Well, that's because they limited everything. They were trying to get rid of trick-or-treating, and people were trying to come up with better ways to give away candies. And I remember watching videos last year of people coming up with like delivery systems where they would be standing on their porch or at their front doors, and they would have these like zip lines for candy baskets, and the kids could get the candy from the baskets.
That's cool.
This year, I think it's one of those people are kind of like realizing like, wow, this really can happen. We can really lose our holidays. Coming up with these inventive ideas on how to do a delivery system was kind of cool seeing, but it kind of also lost like that, having the little kids come up to the door and knock on the door.
It's not just about the trick-or-treating though. Like for us, like my family, we really go all out for Halloween. And I will tell you, the stores this year, especially Home Depot, Spirit Halloween, Lowe's, Target, they have really, even Big Lots, they have so much incredible Halloween decorations and animatronics and all this stuff. My family, we go all out for Halloween, and we're even going even bigger this year. In fact, Jenna's been helping me this year, this past month, helping me decorate our business, and I'm really looking forward to sharing all this with kids this year for Halloween.
I don't even know how you're going to top this year, but if requires me putting together another damn thing.
Well, I will tell you though, some of the Halloween decor that is out this year, especially at Home Depot, we were able to get one, but I swear to God, Jen, it was like Black Friday, because the stores like to release their Halloween stuff online early. Like Home Depot started releasing it back in mid-July. Every year, Home Depot seems to have some key Halloween decor that people fight for, and my mom and I were able to get one, but we ended up getting this 12-foot tall flaming pumpkin skeleton, because last year we had our 12-foot skeleton, which I named Wally, and we were like, well, Wally needs a companion, so Home Depot had this 12-foot pumpkin skeleton, and you couldn't find him. You could not find him. Luckily, thank God, because I used to be a manager for Home Depot, I still know some people in there, and there were some stores locally in my area that had some in the overhead, and we were able to put one on will call. But before they even set up for the Halloween stuff in the store, Jen, those pumpkin skeletons were already gone. They didn't even hit the floor. They were already sold out.
Right.
So, it's like everybody is getting into the Halloween spirit. And speaking of Halloween spirit, we've got a very special guest that actually loves and lives by Halloween. And we've got Winston. And Winston handles Scream-a-geddon down in Florida. And Andrew is standing by with him today. And they've got he's got a really fun Halloween event they put on every year down in Florida. And I can't wait to hear about it.
Right? I'm kind of like Halloween struck with everything and how everybody's doing Halloween this year. With us going to Knott's Berry Farm and doing that. The one park I want to do their Halloween haunt thing is Disneyland. I know the tickets are expensive, but that's the one park that I haven't hit in California for their Halloween.
At least I'm going to get to go and check out the Oogie Boogie Bash. I've never done a Disney event like that, so this is going to be a lot of fun. I know Iva, the whole team's been in California, and we're going to be having fun going to experience the Oogie Boogie Bash, and I was actually amazed I was still able to get tickets, because usually Disney events tickets are sold out within a day.
Right.
So I'm really shocked on that. But we've got, like I said, we got an incredible guest coming up, but first we are going to do our Halloween edition of the YouTube Highlight Clip of the Week.
It's the YouTube Highlight Clip of the Week. Halloween edition.
All right, so this week's YouTube highlight clip of the week, Halloween edition, we are going to take a time to talk about Six Flags Fright Fest. And I will tell you guys, at Six Flags Magic Mountain, which is my home park, they put on a really good Fright Fest every year, and they've always invited us here at the podcast to a special media event. And Jenna and I actually got to attend the 2019 media event, which was a lot of fun. You want to share a little about that, Jen?
Oh my God. We know how much I love not having control of my surroundings. When they did that, I think my anxiety level was super high, and it took me a while to kind of come down and get that under control. If you remember, we kind of had to go off away from the scare zones, just so that way I could kind of regroup and be like, okay, because my heart was racing just with the opening ceremonies and them dispersing everybody into the group.
Yeah, I like how they make it where, so the one thing about Six Flags is there are safe zones and there are scare zones. But unfortunately, when you're walking through the park, they make it where you have to walk through the scare zone.
Right.
When you walk through the scare zones, you don't know what you're going to be walking in because each one has a different theme. And I will say that during the media preview, I'm glad to say that I got to at least walk through behind the scenes of one of the mazes at Six Flags back in 2019. I don't know if it's going to be back this year. I'm pretty sure it will, but there was a maze that they had. It was kind of cool, but kind of creepy. It was like a house that looked like it had been abandoned for over 20 plus years. And the people that lived in the house disappeared. Everything was left behind. All the furniture, all their stuff, food in the kitchen, you name it. It was all supposed to be still in this house. Imagine food in a kitchen, sitting on a dining room table, sitting in a refrigerator, no power, sitting there for 20 years rotting.
Ugh, that turns into slush after a while.
Oh, it was, and it's funny is that how they did it is that it smelled like it was abandoned. Like everything wilting, and you go in the kitchen, everything is all rotten. There's like roaches everywhere and all that stuff, and just seeing the refrigerator door open and just seeing all the maggots and all the food rotting, and I was like, wow, that is some detail work. Whoever designed that really put a lot of craftsman work into doing that, because that takes time. Me, someone who does professional Halloween decorating, when you're doing detail stuff like that, it takes time, and I guarantee you that took a year to do.
Right. No, I can just imagine the smell in there of like rotted food and stuff, because I know I've come across, you forget like a bag of potatoes I had at a friend's house. When I was cleaning out his house, he had fruit flies, and we were trying to figure out where they were, and I go into a cabinet, open up the cabinet, and start pulling stuff out, and there was a bag of potatoes that had liquefied.
Wow.
And it was just like, ooh, okay, that's gross. You see all the fruit flies come out, and it's like, okay, I found your problem.
Yeah.
So I could just imagine what that would smell like, of like rotted milk, and oh no.
Yeah, I mean, they did a good job on the from sound effects to the smell. It was like, wow, you could just when you walk through that maze, walk through this house, you can just tell that it's really smelled like it was abandoned for 20 plus years. It's really amazing how they do it. I will say Six Flags works very hard to do their mazes well. They're really trying to get up there with Universal, with Not Scary Farm, with even Disney at some points. Like I know one maze they kind of were trying to like doing like almost like the Haunted Mansion type, but it was more twisted, more crazier, and so I'm really curious to see what they have in store this year. We've been invited to the media event over at Six Flags Fright Fest, and I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, most definitely.
But yes, I will say that every park, right of it, Six Flags, even SeaWorld Entertainment, SeaWorld Parks doing Hallow Screams and stuff. This is like, everybody is getting into the Halloween spirit this year, which is really awesome, because it felt like there were many years, I felt like the Halloween spirit was kind of dwindling in times.
It definitely seemed like that. Like, I remember when we were kids, it was like every house on the block, and it didn't matter how many blocks you went. It was just like every other house or every house, they were handing out candy or they were decorating, and it just seems like it kind of faded. It's like faded out. Like, people aren't as interested in it.
And then all of a sudden COVID comes, and all of a sudden it's a 180. All of a sudden, like, everybody's getting into the spirit this year, and I'm really excited to see what everybody has plans. But Six Flags Fright Fest, definitely really, really worth going. I really enjoyed it. For somebody who's not big on on Halloween events at parks, who has finally gotten into loving them because I've myself gotten into the Halloween spirit. They're actually pretty fun to go to. So we're definitely going to be highlighting a YouTube clip of Fright Fest in our show notes so you guys can take a look at it.
Side note, anybody that has anxiety problems or that are empaths, definitely prepare yourself for any of these things, because I know for me, being an empath, it was really hard.
Well, as like I said, you gotta remember, it's all in good fun.
It is.
These are all people. They're not really out there to kill you. So, like I say. But anyway, guys, we're going to put the lovely clip of Fright Fest in our show notes. But until then, this was a really good Halloween version of the YouTube Highlight Clip of the Week.
This is YouTube Highlight Clip of the Week, Halloween edition.
All right, so Andrew is standing by with Winston from Scream-a-geddon, and it's going to be a really fun interview, guys. I hope you take the time to listen to it. Take it away, Andrew.
Thank you, David and Jenna. This is Andrew, one of the producers of the Coaster Challenge podcast. Today we have a special guest here in haunt season to talk to today. I'm happy to be sitting down with Winston McDaniel. He's one of the people in charge of the Scream-a-geddon, which is a very large independent haunt here in Florida. Let's talk with Winston. How you doing, Winston?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Doing great. Getting excited for haunt season, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's probably one of my favorite times
right
of year.
Around the corner.
Yeah.
It's right around the corner. We can't wait.
Awesome. Generally, we do our interviews. We kind of have two parts to them. So we're going to start with our typical kind of first part of our interview, just to kind of get to know you as a person a little bit. I will ask you something a little more specific related to the fact that you work in the haunt industry. And then the second half, I want to talk and dig into your experience with haunts and with Scream-a-geddon. We'll be certainly talking about what Scream-a-geddon's about and so forth. But actually, to start off with, you might want to start with that a little bit. Let's, how about you tell our audience here, tell us about yourself and your involvement in the independent haunt arena.
Yeah, so I started working for Scream-a-geddon. I guess now this is coming up in my fourth season, so I have 3 or 4 years now. And pretty much got into the business through the marketing angle. Kind of came in as a graphic designer, kind of pretty fresh out of school, out of college. And I have always had like a big affinity for haunted house attractions. Love going to them all over the country that I've been to. And so finally found an angle to do work in marketing or advertising, which is what I went to school for, and my love for haunted houses, and found this opportunity and went with it. Because I guess like the interesting story with that is like when I was in high school, I put on like my own haunted house. Like I was in charge of like our school recreational room. It was like a place where students could buy like food and like stuff like that because it was a boarding school. And I created a whole haunted house inside that whole recreational room. And that's like, I realized how much fun it is to like create this experience of spooking people and making and scaring people and make them have a good time around the Halloween season. Because that's when it's like socially acceptable to scare people is Halloween. So then I basically just kind of found my way into Scream-a-geddon all these years later. And yeah, and I love working it. It's a really interesting field to work in. You know, my Google search history is very strange when it comes to researching stuff for work, you know, bloody clowns, spooky things like that, scary music. But it's a good time.
Right. So I can imagine if someone didn't understand the context, in some cases, maybe someone seeing your search history might think he might be a therapist.
Yeah, exactly. There might be. I remember once I was working on some graphics of a clown image or something like in public. And to me, I'm very like flat on how all of this looks. And someone walked behind me and was like shocked about what I was working on. I'm like, no, don't. Let me explain. I work for this company.
Right.
And it was a good time.
That's funny. Our audience, you know, we have a lot of coaster enthusiasts, coaster fans, theme park fans in general. So a lot of our audience is probably certainly familiar with theme park haunts, whether it be, you know, Six Flags Fright Fest or, you know, the similar types of events that are at Cedar Fair parks, or, you know, Halloween, like they have at Busch Gardens. Now they're having at SeaWorld as well. Or of course, Halloween Horror Nights, Not Scary Farmer. Probably those are the two biggest theme park haunts right there. Two of my personal favorites, certainly. There's another side to haunts that some of our audience should be familiar with, which is where I think you come in with Scream-a-geddon. So why don't you just briefly tell our audience what Scream-a-geddon's about, what it is?
Yeah, so to kind of build off, like obviously we're not attached to a theme park, so we are, you know, I guess you would call it an independent haunt. Like, you know, that's the company we are. We are Scream-a-geddon. Basically, so Scream-a-geddon is an independent haunt in Dade City, Florida. It's about a little bit north of Tampa Bay, Florida. It is a seasonal haunted house attraction throughout September and October. So we put on 5 haunted houses, and then 1 zombie paintball assault is kind of like the add-on experience that we have. That's not particularly scary, but it is definitely part of the whole horror experience that we like to put on. One of the benefits of being an independent haunt is I think we get to focus a lot on why people come out to these things, which is the scares, and to the whole art of being scared and doing that in a way that's fun and not mean. And there's a really big difference, in my opinion, between trying to terrify someone and trying to scare them. And we try to scare people maybe in a terrifying way, but not trying to terrify people to where they, can't sleep or something.
Right. And certainly we're going to dive deeper into what Scream-a-geddon is all about. I personally have experienced it. I love it. And I relate some of my personal experiences that I've had there, and kind of relate it to, you're creating it and managing it on your end. It'd be interesting to talk about that later, but let's put that particular topic on hold for the time being. We're going to talk a little bit more about you and your experience just enjoying theme parks in general. And then we'll dive back into all the haunt stuff big time here.
Sure thing.
So my first question, sure. My first question for you is, I remember you mentioned before we got started with the recording that you grew up here in Florida. This is, the theme park capital of the world. Amazing world-class theme parks, several of them here in the Orlando and Tampa area. What was your very first theme park attraction you remember experiencing growing up?
Oh, man. Okay. I don't remember the name of the roller coaster, but I remember even though I grew up here in Florida, I was born in Houston, Texas. And there used to be a Six Flags, I think it was called Astro World.
Yes.
In Houston. And
yes.
I'm pretty sure it's not there anymore.
It's not.
Yeah. And I remember I must have been younger than 6. And I remember there was one, that was probably a kid coaster, but to me it was larger than life. And I rode some sort of serpent coaster there, I think maybe like 20 times in a row. My parents were like, we need to leave. I said, no, we're going to stay here. This is me. But I think to move it to Florida, where I probably have my first love of a ride and our attraction here. And we can kind of go into this later if you want, because I too got very nervous about a lot of rides in terms of coasters and stuff like that. But the one roller coaster that kind of jived with me through up until I kind of got over that fear was the Revenge of the Mummy coaster at Universal Studios. And that one was, and I, again, much like when I was a kid on that serpent roller coaster in Astro World, rode that thing again and again and again. But I was with my friends, they were cool with it. And my parents were trying to get me out of there or anything. All
right. Those are good 2 starting ones. So you have one of those, probably what it sounds like. And I've never been to Astro World. I never got to go there before it went away, unfortunately. The way you're describing it, it sounds kind of like what we call a dragon wagon. Again, maybe you were too young, but was it a powered coaster, or did it actually have a lift hill? Or
it had a lift hill. It was really, to me, it was big, but it was probably tiny.
Right. Okay. So like a junior kids coaster. Got it. But
Definitely.
Then, right. The first one so I guess what it sounds like, the first coaster that you really resonated with, certainly beyond being just a kid, was Revenge of the Mummy at Universal Orlando, right?
Yeah. And that probably maybe dived in a little bit to I love the movie. And then, if if you're not familiar with the ride, it's so, it builds in the theming of a theme park, it was more than just going quick. It was the story that was involved in the ride, and the effects and the fire and all that kind of stuff kind of made it all cool. And then it was the fun at the end with the actual speed and stuff like that.
Right. And I would say that Revenge of the Mummy, I've been on both. Certainly a lot of people compare the Hollywood version versus the Orlando one. And for me, there is hands down no comparison. The Orlando one is much better. It's simply, like Walt said, a blessing of size. The one in Hollywood, they're limited in space in general, and they had to fit it into an existing building. I think that went into the old ET building. Whereas the one in Orlando, they had more room to work with the Confrontation building, because again, it's Florida. It was a bigger attraction, bigger show building. So they were able to fit it in better and certainly do more with it. You already alluded to this, and I know you said you never got the questions in advance, but you're already kind of predicting where we're going. We talked about kind of what your first couple of attractions were, and it could have been one of the ones we just talked about, could have been another one. Let's talk about the theme park attraction. Could be a coaster, a different kind of ride, whatever it may be, that has scared you the most before you got on it. So we're going to dive into that. First of all, What would be the one that has scared you the most over the years?
Oh man. Okay. This is a great question. Scared me the most. It's funny because like I said before, I did used to have a fear of rides, and I'm still not perfect in that regard. And if I don't go to a theme park for a while, I feel like I kind of I lose a little bit of that, I don't know what you would call it, like a little bit of courage. I forget what what it's like to be on a big roller coaster, right? Because like, especially after 2020, you know, I didn't go on any rides because, you know, who did? And I went on a ride for the first time, and I still had that kind of like a little bit of, I guess, nervousness going on it. But to go back to the very first, like, when I got over it was over in, actually back in Texas, at the one in Arlington, Six Flags.
Texas,
I'm not sure what it's called.
That's the original. That's the original Six Flags over Texas. Yeah.
Rad. So I remember I was driving there with the person I was going with, and the person I was with, she was like a big coaster enthusiast, and we showed up, and she pointed at their I think it's called Goliath, the really big one over in there. I think it's called Goliath. I don't remember what it's called, but it's one of the 250 feet tall roller coasters.
Yeah. Massive. Have you been to Magic Mountain by chance ever in California?
No, not in California.
Okay, because there's Goliath in Magic Mountain, and it's basically its twin. It's made by, both these coasters are hyper coasters that are over 200 feet tall, that were made by a company called Giandola. Not a very common coaster manufacturer, at least here in the US. There is Goliath in California at Magic Mountain, and then there's Titan, which is the same, basically almost the same coaster in Texas. Was this one that it didn't go upside down? It didn't have a big helix in the middle.
Yeah, I think it was Titan then.
Yeah,
Titan, very similar.
That's Titan. Yep.
So I remember she pointed. She's like, "You're going to ride that today." I said, "You're out of your mind. There's no way I'm riding that today." And she did a really great job. She started me on the smallest coaster there and just kind of worked my way up. Every time I would get in line for the next one, I'm like, all right, this is the final one that I'm doing today. Like, I'm done after this. Thought I'd do it and want to do the next one and the next one. And by the end of the day, I rode it, and it was a great time. And then from then on, I got back to Florida, and I went on like a trek of all the roller coasters in Florida. I went and did Sheikah at Busch Gardens, which I was terrified to do because it's, for those who don't know, it's 200 feet tall, like a straight 90-degree drop. Not about it. Did that and did a bunch of those. So that was kind of getting over that fear of probably the most scared to get on that. And then in a funnier way, it was a couple of years ago, I remember being utterly terrified to go on Tower of Terror at Disney World. And I remember being like, and being like weirdly, someone who likes horror and likes spooky things and likes roller coasters, I was so nervous to ride that ride. And for some reason, I put so much into riding that. And, my girlfriend was laughing at me the entire time, but then finally I went and did it, and it was a lot of fun. And I love that ride now. Interesting.
Okay. A couple things to unpack there. So first of all, you mentioned Titan. You mentioned also Tower of Terror. Of those two, which is the one that scared you the most of those two?
I'm going to say Tower of Terror, because I think by the time I rode Titan, I was like, I had a good ramp up kind of riding on that. And I remember I was more excited that I was like, yeah, I'm going to get on this ride and I'm going to do it. And I was kind of excited that I was breaking the fears. Whereas for some reason, Tower of Terror, I just couldn't get on it, and then finally forced myself to walk on and rode and had a good time.
Okay. So did you ride Titan before Tower of Terror?
Yes, to make it even funnier in my mind.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier about Titan that you were scared to get on it. You got on it, kind of built yourself up to it. With your friend was kind of helping you with that. So anyway, so your friend is an enthusiast. You were not being so much of an enthusiast at the time. Certainly, she's kind of working you up, which makes sense. Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned after riding Titan that was kind of the coaster that really got you into coasters. And then you basically were riding any coaster out there after that, really liking it.
Yeah, it was kind of like the way that I saw it is I rode Titan. It's like 250 feet tall or whatever. Because if you haven't picked up, a lot of it's height,
right?
And I've kind of honed it. It's not height. It's falling from great heights. Like I can be high. I think it's cool, but it's the falling aspect of it that I don't like. So if a roller coaster, even today, if a coaster has like a pretty wicked drop, I'm a little apprehension to get on it. Where it's like I like rides that have other ways of gaining speed, I guess you could say. But yeah, Titan was the one who I figured if I could ride that, I could ride Sheikah, which was 50 feet shorter, or any other rides at Busch Gardens, which is the closest theme park to where I live currently. And then everything at Universal wasn't as scary looking as Titan was, because Titan's a pretty massive machine. So yeah, I guess you could say that's what broke it open.
Right, because you had the fear of heights and of falling, which is a very common fear. Again, we talk a lot about fear and anxiety and things like that on this podcast, especially with regard to theme parks and rides. There's the fear of going upside down. There's the fear of heights, and the fear of heights is very, very common. So it totally makes sense. Goliath kind of like, it really opens you up to, wow, that's a really tall coaster, 250 feet tall, and that allows you to conquer just about anything after that. I mean, there are certainly, as you may already know, not here in Florida, especially in Ohio and other parts of the world, there are 300 plus foot tall coasters. There are even ones over 400 feet, a couple of them in the world. And again, you may have to kind of conquer that fear a little bit again with those, but
absolutely we'll have to.
Yeah, but largely speaking, you really conquered your kind of fear of coasters and what falling and going down a drop and things like that are like on a coaster. So Tower of Terror, unlike a lot of big time thrill coasters and thrill rides, you're waiting for it, inside the building. You're not, outside there waiting with anticipation, seeing the elevator doors open to the outside world. You're inside in that inside queue, and it's creepy. And I know you love horror. That's all probably fine, like you said earlier. But talk to me as you're going through the queue, seeing all this creepy stuff, knowing you're about to get on this like crazy drop tower ride. What's going through your head that first time?
It's funny because like going into Tower of Terror, this is post Winston liking horror stuff. And I'm not sure I was working for Scream-a-geddon at the time, still loved horror stuff. And I remember like showing up and I was like, I love everything about this ride in terms of how the atmosphere down to the fonts used on the signs. Like I loved everything about it. And I was like, and I hate that I can't focus on the stuff that I like about this ride because all I'm thinking about is those doors opening at the top and me dropping. Right. So like I remember being frustrated at myself. Like I wanted to appreciate what I was looking at because, how many people in the world get to go to Disney World and see this cool stuff and then getting on it. And then, so yeah, that's what I was thinking the entire time. I just couldn't stop thinking about that drop because I don't know if it's true or not. Because I remember at the time thinking that like it's randomized how tall, how high up you go. I don't know if that's true or not. Yes. So I was like, they're going to give me the highest one. It's going to be the worst drop. I was being very negative about it. Yeah, I guess that's mainly what I wanted to appreciate all of like the kind of like because the theming in that ride is incredible. I love how they make dirty look cool, and dirty does not look cool, but they made it. They make it look rad. So and it was that, and I'm kind of always like the cast members of Disney World are amazing, and just kind of like they're always in character, and they don't help you feel more comfortable. At least for me, as I was going there as an adult. I think I've seen with them they're a little bit better with maybe some kids that are a little bit more nervous, but for adults they weren't necessarily helping me. But yeah, I loved what I saw, and then when I've gone on it again, I've been able to kind of just appreciate it for what it is and kind of look at the awesome theming and the story behind it. The ride's like, you probably know when was the ride made?
Tower of Terror, the one at Hollywood Studios, that's the OG original one. It is very different from all the other ones in the world. I've been on all of them actually, and it opened in I think it was about 96 or so.
Yeah, the fact that the ride still is as effective and cool now and when it was made back then just shows kind of like the coolness that you can do with stuff that's maybe on the more spooky side, because you play with darkness and you play with things like that, which is a relatively easy thing to work with, and it has a lasting power. That's kind of shows you how long that ride could probably stand the test of time, in my opinion, in terms of thrill factor and interest factor.
Right. After riding it that first time and you had that kind of, again, part of your mind focused, oh God, that drop and everything. So talk to me how you felt, what you were thinking about after you got off that ride the first time.
How I got off the first time. Like probably a lot of people who get off that ride, it's laughing hysterically, which is probably one of the funniest things to come out of it, is you kind of put so much attention thinking about the drop and everything like that, and it being I remember thinking that the phrase, and you probably hear this a lot on the show, is, oh, that was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's a phrase that's like, oh, the feeling I thought I was going to feel, there's a minute of a second that when the doors open, I was scared. But the second the movement started, it was fun, because that's when I started to realize as I was getting off the ride, I was like, okay, these machines, while are thrilling, are meant to have fun. No one's making you go on a roller coaster or the Tower of Terror to put you through a bad time. They want you to have fun, so you come back. So it's like, I had that realization. I was like, these machines are intimidating, but they're fun. They're supposed to be. So I thought at that point, I was like, I really got to stop thinking about these things in a negative way and thinking about them more in a positive way, because I live, I'm fortunate enough to live so close to Disney World that I get to go on it it's pretty much whenever I want to, where that's not the case for everybody else in the world. For some people, it's, hundreds of dollars to even think about coming to Disney World. But for me, it's a, 2-hour drive.
Right. So talk to me, after riding Tower of Terror for that first time, you get off the ride, etc. How did riding Tower of Terror, conquering your fears in your biggest way, at least so far in your life, on that ride, did that impact your life in any way, or have any kind of effect?
In terms of like theme parks and stuff like that, because like as someone who did, like I've grown up around theme parks, my entire life, and I've always wanted to appreciate everything they have to offer. And a lot of the times I haven't been able to experience all of that, right? Because I've been nervous to ride this ride or that ride, when that's maybe a big part of the park, right? So kind of both instances with the Titan roller coaster and that whole experience there in Texas, and then with the Tower of Terror in the last 5-ish years, it's made me, while there may maybe those thoughts of being nervous, ultimately I know that if I just get myself in line, get myself on the ride, lock in place or whatever the, safety mechanism is, and then just go, I'm going to, in the next,
Right.
I might be uncomfortable for a minute, but then once, like you said, once the movement starts and the fun kicks in, I'm going to remember all the good stuff. And I'm going to very nicely laugh at myself for being so nervous about something I know there are much bigger things to be nervous about. Particularly really thought about, how it's affected my, life outside of that. Since then, I maybe been a little bit more carefree about not being so worked up about certain things. I could definitely equate that because I have spent so much time being nervous about rides in my life that for that to not be a thing to be nervous about anymore lets me focus on things in a more positive way.
Right. No, good couple points there. So, first of all, you were talking about how having ridden Titan, having ridden Tower of Terror, these two attractions that are really big deals in terms of someone who's afraid of heights, afraid of falling. Now, with conquering both, you may still have some of that fear, some of those thoughts going through your mind before getting on an attraction like that in the future. You're not giving it as much attention, right?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? That is a good lesson there. And as someone myself, as so many of our guests, so many people in our audience, so many people in this world, a lot of people think, for example, that the common cold, which is a virus, much like the coronavirus, that is the most common illness. Mm-hmm. There is actually data to suggest the more common illness than the common cold is depression and mental illness in general. One of the things that therapists teach us, and I use this in my daily life all the time, is if there's something that's bothering us, something that's trying to dominate our mind, like a fear, you don't want to just try to ignore it or just try to push it out of the way. The better approach is to give it a little bit of attention, to acknowledge it. For example, in your mind, you could say, okay, I've been on Tower of Terror before. It scared me that first time, but I've really enjoyed it. But here I am, I'm going on this Guardians of the Galaxy version I've never been on in Disneyland. And I've heard it's different. I talked to that guy, Andrew, in this podcast interview, and he said it's different than the one in Florida and it's got a whole different theme. And who knows what it's going to feel like. And yeah, I'm a little scared of it because I've never been on that version before. I know that I'm good with this stuff and I trust these theme parks. Their rides are very safe. So I'm going to acknowledge that I'm afraid of it, but I'm not going to feed that fear, that anxiety. Just going to acknowledge it. I'm going to tuck it away. I'm going to let it be there, but I'm not going to feed it. And instead, I'm going to think about, oh, wow, the fun I could have here. Or, wow, look at that really cool theming and all this stuff. That is a really good tool to have in one's toolbox in dealing with depression, anxiety, fear, stress, and things like that, is to acknowledge whatever it is that bothers us, but just don't give it too much attention, if that makes sense. It sounds like that's what you've been doing. Yeah, since then. That's awesome. So,
yeah, because as an example of that, because quite recently this year, and when with Universal opening up again, have been on a thrill ride in a long time, showing up to ride the Velocicoaster,
yes,
which is intimidating looking. If if you're like me, you don't really like falling from a high, and that high top is a little intimidating. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's big, it's black metal, it's all that sorts of stuff. And I remember being in line for that. And I was talking to my girlfriend. I was like, I'm a little nervous to do this. Are you nervous? And she's like, no. I'm like, well, I wish I was you. And I remember kind of was telling myself, okay, cool. I'm a little bit nervous now, but I know the second that we launch, wherever the launch is at the time, I didn't know. The second that happens, I'm going to be totally on board. I'm going to be so happy. And luckily the line wasn't that long, so I didn't have to be that uncomfortable. And I got into pretty much right when the shoulder things came down. I think they have shoulder things. I don't remember how. No, that one's a lap thing.
Lap bar only. Yeah.
So once I put the lap bar down, I was fine. I was okay. I'm ready to go. Something about feeling tucked in. I was like, all right, I'm good. And then I loved it. It was an incredible ride.
Nice. Yeah. Velocicoaster is my number one coaster right now. We'll see if that changes once I finally get on Steel Vengeance here in Cedar Point here in a few weeks. But yeah, Velocicoaster is incredible. It's 2 minutes. It's only a 2 minute long ride, or just over 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes of Coaster Nirvana. A lot
happens in 2 minutes on that ride.
Yeah, it's intense. Yeah, again, all that stuff happening, going so fast, all those elements and the boost launch in the middle and everything else. You touched upon something there too, that as soon as you got the restraint in place, the lap bar, for example, Velocicoaster, you felt fine. And I've seen that with other people, other guests in the show. There's that sort of when you feel kind of locked in place and secure and it's comfortable and things like that, it's a reassurance, and it's sort of like that. The other thing I've heard along those lines is that, well, I'm locked in now, I'm committed, so let's just go with it. So that's sort of kind of related tangentially to the idea of, okay, I'm afraid, but I'm not going to give it too much attention. I'm locked in. I can't go back now. It is what it is. Let's tuck that away. Let's have fun now. So that's kind of how that works. Well, thank you for kind of taking us through that journey of what you went through with Titan and with Tower of Terror. Again, we've interviewed a number of guests on the show. We always kind of talk to them about what scared them the most. And we've heard different stories, a lot of coasters. I don't know if we've ever had Tower of Terror before, and that makes a lot of sense.
I was worried it was going to be one that's been said before, and I was like, well, this is going to be boring content.
Oh no, we've had it's never boring because everyone has a different perspective. This isn't a repeat as far as I remember, so that's that was a good story, very appropriate for actually what we're going to talk about next, because unlike a lot of theme park attractions, a lot of the ones that have come up before on the show, Tower of Terror is more of one in a special area in that, yeah, it's got the drop ride aspect, or really the being forced downward and so forth. It also is more of a spooky kind of theme. And so what I want to talk to you about now is some spooky kind of stuff, some haunt related stuff. Talk to me, given the work that you do, tell me about the process of creating a haunt attraction.
Yeah, so creating a haunted attraction, I would think does take some engineering, but we're not messing with G-forces here. We're messing with people's imaginations and their kind of inherent fears and things like that. The process that goes into it is a lot of research to begin with. Like, to kind of go back to what I said about weird Google search histories and stuff like that. So we kind of, the idea is really, building this linear path. Well, our haunts are a little bit different where sometimes the paths branch off, but it's this like very interesting path that, much like a theme park tries to do, it kind of takes you out of, Florida or wherever you live and transports you into whatever we want the story to be. And then the actors are going to interact with you. And especially at our park where, we are fortunate enough that we don't have to worry about pushing through, I'd say, the volume of people that a big park like Halloween Horror Nights has to push through, right? They have millions of people. I don't know the numbers. A lot of people. Anybody who's been there knows. While we are very busy, we can send you and your group of friends, or you and your family, or whoever that you're there with, through the house, and the house is set up waiting for you. So it's essentially that very intimate kind of like space of you're going through and you're going to get scared because they're all waiting for you. That makes it that much more intense and that much more, in my opinion, fun, because it's at that point it's more of like an interactive play that you're kind of in part of, where you're the star and everyone's kind of coming to get you, and you're not part of everybody else that's there. It's like it's just you and your friends.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I certainly have had that type of experience at Scream-a-geddon, where it's just a few people at a time versus the conga lines you see at Halloween Horror Nights or Not Scary Farm or theme park arts in general. So yeah, having that more intimate, not having all these people around you, it's scarier, it's more intense, seems more real, to your point.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so obviously you're doing a lot of research, looking up imagery and maybe even researching stories and folklore and whatnot. That makes a lot of sense. But one of the standout experiences for me, and I think you guys have something along these lines each year, is, you guys have your traditional mazes that are built that are either indoors or partially walls and stuff. But you have that kind of that trail one where you go along the trail and you periodically go into like houses and buildings, right?
Yeah, for the we can probably get into that in the previous years that was called Deadwoods, is what that trail was called.
Right.
You can't really call it a house because it's in the middle, it's in the woods. This year we've taken that one out and we've put something in its place, so it's similar outdoor indoor thing. That's our new haunt for this year, called Bloodwater Bayou, and it's going to be more voodoo themes than just what Deadwoods was, which was killers in the woods who were scary in their own right. But now we've added some magic to it to make it a little bit more interesting.
Oh, that sounds really good. I want to experience that. With the Deadwoods one, and I want to try to be diplomatic here. Again, Dade City being kind of in the middle of nowhere in Florida, we're not talking about, I want to put this, we're not talking about metropolitan Florida, not talking about Orlando or Miami. We're talking about people some people might live in trailers locally. You've kind of got that sort of not as sophisticated local inhabitants, if you will, that would probably live in that area. A little more rednecky, I guess maybe I could say it that way. Here I am walking through that Deadwoods thing, and I guess you probably could have the same sort of scare actors for this Blood Bayou thing. And I'm walking through and I'm thinking, these people that I'm interacting with in these on this trail and in these houses and buildings, they could be locals. They could, I don't know how much they are actors. It fits in the theme of the area is my point. And that makes it much more genuine and authentic. For a lot of people, I'm sure scary. And that's, you don't get that at Universal. That those are scare actors, that are because of all the IP that they're using and the highly themed stuff. But that's one of the things I really enjoyed about Scream-a-geddon. And I'm sure we'll talk more about some of my experiences, how you guys do things differently there, where you're got that flexibility and that sort of level of intimacy, like you said, sending small groups of people through, not just having a conga line. Another question I have for you is, what role do you think theme park haunts have, or independent haunts like Scream-a-geddon? What role do you think they have in helping people face fear?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question because, and I briefly touched on it earlier, the difference. I think a successful haunted attraction scares people but doesn't terrify them, because I think those are two those are different words of different definitions, in my opinion. And I think that kind of like, much like getting in line for the Tower of Terror or Titan or any of the big rides in the world, there is a little bit of apprehension when you are standing in line in front of a building where there are blood-curdling screams coming from, and you hear chainsaws going off. It's a very I don't want to walk into that. That does not sound like a good time. But then the idea, once you go into it, much like how I appreciated the theming inside Tower of Terror, you start walking into these amazing sets. And if you're talking about Halloween Horror Nights, that's why I love going to them as a haunt enthusiast, is like, I'm not here to get scared. I just want to see what the stuff that they built, because it's going to be the best. I work for Scream-a-geddon and stuff like that. They obviously are the best. They've got the budget for it, right? Movie level budget. So it's just to see, someone who has an interest in theater, like I studied theater in college, going through and seeing like these amazing sets that were built and all of the stuff that goes around it. And then there's the music that they add to it. And it becomes an interactive, and a cheesy way of saying it, an interactive movie that you walk through. I see it more as an interactive play that you walk through. And it's entertainment at that point. And sure, the actors are going to come at you with a knife or something, or a stage knife, I should say, and things like that. And there's going to give you that little pop of adrenaline. And then you're going to scream and you're going to, you can't really see me on the podcast, but like hide your face or whatever. You're going to see your big tough guy friend who is going to get terrified and scream like a girl and run down without you, right? You're going to see these different sides of your friends and your family, and you're going to all laugh about it. You're going to come up with these like inside jokes and stories, much like a good piece of entertainment. And it's just like, it's interactive entertainment. And that's how I see it. And I think it does a good job of kind of removing you from your real life things that are probably scaring you into for the next 5 minutes. We're going to give you some fantasy to be a little bit spooked about.
Right. That's a good point. Obviously, balance is important. So talk to me about when you guys are researching and designing a haunt attraction, how do you make it just the right amount of scary? Because obviously you can, beyond inflicting pain or actually something like that, still there's things you can do where you can really freak people out where it's too much. So talk to me about how you guys balance that.
Well, it's kind of like we build one haunted house and then we see how it's done, and then we, how people react to it. And then we kind of, for the next one, because we kind of learn from one to one to one, and we survey a lot of our guests about like, hey, what did you like, what you didn't like? And as well as we walk through stuff, and ideas in our head look a lot different after we build it and we put an actor in there and they perform, their part. And when it's just one note all the time, we find that it gets old really quickly, because at the end of the day, like, this is a haunted house. It's meant to scare you, but part of you knows that that clown running at me with the knife is not going to stab me. They're not even going to touch me because they can't. Well, that's a different thing for us.
Well, that's a whole nother, yeah.
Yeah, but you've agreed to that. It's the kind of like any good piece of, like I said, entertainment, it's going to have your ebbs and your flows. We kind of just study our own haunts, and then we go visit other independent haunts and we see what they're doing in terms of balance and pacing within a haunted house. So where now a lot of the new haunts that we build, we put in humor and we put in things to kind of break it up for a split second. You're like you said, you're laughing at what's happening, not being scared or screaming or something like that. And therefore, because at the end of the day, for me personally, when a person exits the haunted house, the emotion I want out of them is laughing and talking to their friends. I don't want to see anybody crying. I don't want to see anybody like stricken white with fear, because I want them to come back. You know what I mean? So
right.
I want them to have a good time. That idea of kind of putting in jokes and putting in maybe a character he may look scary, but he may have a funny line that's kind of out of left field. And we had a lot of fun with that. And the new haunt that we were able to put on last year, even despite COVID and everything, We still put on a new haunt last year with Ravenhill Asylum, and we were able to put a lot of fun. I don't want to spoil anything that happens in the house, but there's definitely one part of there that's going to make you go, wait, what's going on right now? This is not, am I in a haunted house or am I somewhere else? Kind of make people laugh and have a good time. Kind of everything that goes on from then on, want to create that effect.
Right. That makes sense. So really, you're balancing things, but not necessarily making things too scary, but you're having humor in the attraction itself, in the maze itself, to kind of balance. That's interesting. And you make a good point as well, that you don't want, even with the scary stuff, you don't want it to be monotonous. You don't want the same scare throughout, because then people are going to be expecting it and they're going to get even bored with it. You want to, have some variety. So you guys aim for that. That makes a lot of sense. There is another aspect of Scream-a-geddon that I already wanted to talk to you about, and you already alluded to it. So let's go there. Let's unpack this. The 1,000-pound gorilla here. Again, a lot of our audience may have not experienced a lot in independent haunts. Now, in theme park haunts, usually, now Knott's, again, they have done some very interesting things over the years, but for the most part, theme park haunts, there are certain rules, and these rules are for the guests and for the scare actors. And one of those, of course, it's all around safety. One of those is the scare actors don't touch you and you don't touch them. And in fact, and that's very serious. In either case, the scare actor would lose their job or worse. And if a guest touches a scare actor, and these things have happened, I've heard of people punching clowns and if you do anything touching or hitting a scare actor, you're done. You're ejected. Yeah, so it's very, for safety reasons, because everyone's human. We got to treat each other respectfully and not hurt each other. However, independent haunts, and certainly Scream-a-geddon, is known for having exceptions to that rule with consent. And I have certainly experienced this myself in 2019, where at least some of your houses, some of your haunts, your mazes, you can opt to wear like basically a necklace, and that is giving the scare actors, it's advising them as you're going through whatever the attraction is, that you have opted in to allow more interactive type experience. For example, I remember one of the, I think, more permanent buildings you guys have there is like a jail. And I forget what the exact theming was in 2019 for this, but it's like a medieval jail, basically. And I remember I opted in, my friend and I did, and we got grabbed by one of the scare actors actually a couple times and thrown in a jail cell in the middle. And they were telling us what to do, and, for a couple minutes, and they let us go. But it was just more real that way. It's more immersive that way. It's funny. There's laughter too. And then I remember you guys had another one, which was kind of like in certain ways may hit a little too close to home for people now, sadly, unfortunately, but kind of a virus themed one where like zombies and people in body bags, and people could opt in to go inside be put in the body bags. And that's we were very happy that we had made the decision to get rid of because after 2019 we made a decision to get rid of that zombie one that was basically based around infection. So we had made that prior to COVID becoming a thing. We were very happy that we did that, because that would have been we would not have been able to open that. That would have been in very poor taste. But you're right. So Scream-a-geddon, we have two houses that we call our interactive houses, where, like you said, you wear a necklace and you give our actors permission to include you in the show, is what we say. Is you, at that point, you will get a very intimate reception from our actors, where they will take you away from your group. They will put you in a jail cell. They'll put you by yourself with an actor in a room. It's an intense experience. But it's something that I always recommend to people. And that's not just because I work there, because I went to Scream-a-geddon before I was an employee, just as a haunt enthusiast, because I heard about this interactive stuff that they were doing. And I went and I did it. And I was like, this is, because again, it goes back to the idea of I see haunted houses as like a theater show. And at that point, you're like taken backstage, not really in real life backstage, but you're going to see something that your friends aren't seeing, and you're going to have interaction one-on-one with this actor, and he's going to improv. We put our best actors in those positions because they have to improv so much with the guests that are there. And you get these really interesting one-on-one, where it makes that you can go through the Blackpool prison or Ravenhill Asylum, our two interactive houses, as multiple times, because you're not going to see everything through the first time. And it's kind of more of there's behind the scenes, and there's extra scenes in the movie that you aren't seeing if you just take the main path. And again, a lot of it does kind of go back to, at the end of the day, you're going to get scared when someone grabs your shoulders and starts moving you away from your friends.
that's going to get really scary, really intense, really quick. But once you're in it, much like moving on the ride, the adrenaline's going to start kicking in, and you're going to see how much fun it is to interact with one of these creatures or monsters that we got cooking up in these attractions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, as someone again that doesn't get scared easily, not that I would say I got like scared or some, anything like that in these interactive attractions you're talking about. It just, I love the higher level of immersion. It's more entertaining. Normally, a scare actor, they don't talk much. You don't see them much. You see them for a few seconds. Where here, they're engaging in conversation. They're in character, of course. And there's this higher level of appreciation for scare actors with those interactions. And also, to your point, you alluded to this towards the beginning of our interview. For example, the Blackpool Prison, especially if you opt in with the interactive aspect, you're not going to see the same things everyone else does. You're going on a different path. It's shortcutting and I remember they were telling you, oh yeah, go this way, go this way. They were kind of directing us. It was almost like a maze with multiple paths. So it's which is cool. It's not, again, like the conga line at Universal where you go through the whole thing the same way. Yeah. And I would say for, again, anyone audience that's listening, if you crave that sort of more edgy horror haunt, if you love Not Scary Farm and you're here in Florida, go to Scream-a-geddon, because you're not going to get that more edgy stuff at Universal or probably at Howl Scream and things like that. At SeaWorld and Busch. But if you go to Scream-a-geddon, which is, we're not far from Busch Gardens, you're going to get that more edgy thing. And again, as a fan of Not Scary Farm, but not living near Not Scary Farm anymore, Scream-a-geddon is sort of my mini Not Scary Farm for me, with even some nuances like this interactive stuff, which is great. So actually, that kind of transitions well into a good segue into my next question, which is for myself and other fans of Scream-a-geddon, or people that maybe going to check it out because they're heard about it here today. You already mentioned the Blood Bayou, but is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience about what they can expect this year?
Yeah, so Bloodwater Bayou's our brand new haunt for 2021. Take everything you loved about the Deadwoods attraction, and then with all of everything new that we've learned, it's going to be even better. I can't wait for it. But I also, it's something other kind of unique that we offer is our kind of add-on experience, which is called Zombie Paintball Assault. It is we're a haunted house park, but this is not an attraction that I would call it a scary attraction. It's a fun attraction, and it's where you and your friends will get on a bus that's mounted with paintball guns, and you then get to shoot zombies as you kind of drive through the woods, or you've driven through the woods, I should say, and get to bring the scaring to the monsters instead of the monsters scaring you. So it's a really nice, again, to go with ebbs and flows in the haunted house. It's a really great kind of break in all of like the scaring to have one of the attractions kind of be more funny and a whole different type of vibe to it. It's like people aren't scared of the zombies on that bus. They're scared of you type of deal.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it was because of lack of time. I didn't do the zombie paintball when I went there 2 years ago, but I definitely want to do it this year because it looks fun. And I like paintball. And it seems like to me, part of what the zombie paintball is it can be, at least for some people, is a little bit of stress relief where they can shoot at people, right? One of the things I wonder about, again, having not experienced the zombie paintball, actually going on the bus and doing it yet, what kind of armor are the actors wearing there? What are we talking about?
Yeah, so they are decked out because obviously they get lit up with these paintballs. They have a full body armor from head to toe. They wear paintball masks underneath. There's their zombie makeup and masks that they got going on there. We're covering like traditional paintball gear. We hire people that have maybe a little of a paintball background, so they're kind of used to the paintball feeling. And then we've also given them cover. So after they get lit up by a lot of paintballs, they generally fall down behind a crate or something, and then they're pretty much hidden at that point. So they won't continue to be lit up after they are dead, after being dead again,
So they'll get a break and then they'll pop back up after they get a break for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So the bus comes through, they get shot, and they act, they do their part. And these zombies, and especially as we've done it throughout, because the first year was 2019, and we did it that year. I'm pretty sure it was 2019. And then we've iterated on it, and where we've given the zombies more hey, if they have a funny idea, or even if it doesn't make sense for a zombie to do, it's funny. Like, remember last year we had a zombie playing drums on something, and he was having fun playing drums while he was getting lit up with paintballs. So every time that I go on that ride, it's a new cast. So like then the zombies are doing all sorts of crazy, weird stuff. And again, it kind of adds to the levity of it. And yeah, I think it's a stress reliever. I mean, one, you get to shoot a living thing that's dead, but done in a really entertaining way. Definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, people can do paintball. I've done regular kind of paintball, competitive paintball before, and you get to shoot at people. But in this case, you're shooting at someone that's not going to shoot back at you, and they're being portrayed as an enemy, and it's kind of in character like that. So it's a unique experience. Like I said, I definitely want to experience it. So I got to ask, as a guy, like I'm assuming all the males, like they're wearing cups and stuff. Like this is like full on protection, right?
Yeah. We like to joke that they're the actors that are, they have the most protection from anybody and then that entire place, because they are, they're getting lit up. So they definitely, I'm assuming that they do. I have not personally checked it out, but
right.
But
right.
if not, that's probably something we should look into.
Right. If they don't do it the first night, they're going to do it the next, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. So have you heard any interesting stories from any of those actors, like from a given, evening, or do they enjoy it, or how are they receiving it? I know they're getting paid for it, obviously.
Yeah. It's funny. I remember when I went out there to do some filming for our social media, and I went out there like, all right, these people are probably not going to be in a good mood. This is like 3 weeks into the season. So like sometimes a little bit of attrition kind of builds at that point. So right. I remember going back there, and they were having a ball. They were so stoked to be doing it, because like I said, we let them kind of create on it. We let them go out, and if they have a funny idea, they run it by the manager of the attraction, and he approves it, and they go out and they get to maybe have some more improv that maybe some of the actors in the traditional houses don't get, because they have lines and timing. It's like, you have to say these 3 lines, and at this time when a guest is, the art of the scare type of thing. So these guys get to have a little bit of fun and creative. They get a lot as much as they put into it. I've heard funny stories where one guy was telling me that somehow he was able to kind of sneak closer to the bus than anybody else. That he got like very close to the bus, and then the people started screaming because they didn't see that guy coming from the right, because they were all focused on the zombies on the left. And he had a lot of fun getting up close to him and all that kind of stuff like that. So, because every run of the zombie thing is a little bit different. Things like that.
That's really cool. Now I'm even more intrigued. I definitely got to do it this year. That's awesome. Again, you guys are an independent haunts. You don't have the budget of, Knott's or Universal or whatnot, but you guys do some creative things and some really, like we just talked about zombie paintball and doing the interactive stuff. Where do you think, being someone that's passionate about haunts and being involved with this industry for a while now, where do you think you see theme park haunts going over, say, the next 5 to 10 years? How are they going to change?
Yeah, it's like, I guess I should speak on, I think where the theme park haunt scene's going is kind of really what you see at Universal with, is like, it's like IP driven. They're going to go and they're going, which as a fan of like horror stuff, I love. It's like, great, give me a haunted house based in the latest horror movie. That's going to be really cool. But whereas obviously, we as Scream-a-geddon, we can't get the rights to Friday the 13th or Stranger Things or whatever Netflix show is coming out next, right? So we have to get really creative. And I'm not saying that what they do is easy, because it's not, but it's a different type of thing where we get to kind of double down on I think haunts are going to start really doubling down on immersion aspects, finding new ways, new technology, new techniques, and new building to make people feel more invested, like, because emotionally, maybe even, it's not that we're going to give like some like big dramatic story, but it's like we can focus on taking a person and transporting them into our space on a more one-to-one level, like with what we do with our interactive attractions. And I could definitely see the interactive thing gaining in popularity, because at first it's a little shocking, but then once you see it in action, like, oh, it's really not that bad. Like, obviously, nobody's getting hurt. Our actors aren't going to rough you around on purpose, or they're not. So it's not like that. It's just that idea that touch is really interesting, and it really adds a whole layer of fear and tension to the attraction that you don't get at a place that legally can't do that.
Right. That's a good point. And just for our audience, I want to make clear, because there are various experiences out there. Scream-a-geddon, again, you can opt in. It's optional. but by default, you won't get touched. It'll be like being at Universal or Howl-O-Scream or Not Scary Farm or whatnot. It's going to be hands off from both sides. But if you opt in optionally to wear the necklace, yeah, are they going to touch you? Yeah, they might grab you and put you in a jail cell or something, or put you in a body bag. But there's not going to be any uncomfortability, physical pain or anything like that. This is certainly beyond where I would want to go. There are experiences like I don't know the guy's last name, but I think his name is Jeff. He's famous. He used to operate out of San Diego. I think maybe he moved, but where he was doing this opt-in haunted house experience where even pain is inflicted on people. And again, to each their own. I'm not going to judge. To be clear, Scream-a-geddon is still fun. It's safe. It's just a little more interactive is the way I'd put it.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the guy you're talking about. I don't remember his name, but he's definitely infamous. And from my understanding, not kind of well liked within the independent haunt community because it's like again we are places trying to scare you but we want you to have fun, where this guy, who knows, right? Anyway, that's a different topic, but but you're 100% right. Like the interactive is to add immersion, it's not to add anything more than that.
Right, makes sense. So one of my last questions we always ask all our guests, talking about fear and facing fear and the benefits of going to theme parks and haunts, certainly, is there any final advice you'd like to give our audience, given that we talked about today?
Yeah, I guess I'd probably kind of harp on what we talked about earlier, is that idea of kind of just get yourself on the machine, or in the haunted house case, just step through the front door and then just kind of go with it. Small chance you don't enjoy yourself, but you're not going to be in a worse state than it's not going to be worse, I would say. And all of these things are designed for fun and to keep that in mind. Whether, like I said, haunted house, roller coaster, drop tower, whatever you want, they're designed for you to have fun and for you to come back. Because we love when people come back for a second year or third year and they're like, oh yeah, I remember I loved this house last year. I'm really excited about this house. And we love those, repeat people on a conceptual level. Obviously on a financial level, we love it. But it's like, I love seeing the same people who come back year in, year out, because I'm like, oh, I remember you. And I remember you and your friends and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, that's how these things are designed to do that. So to focus on the idea that you're meant to have fun inside or on them.
Absolutely. No, good point. Last thing I'd like you to do, Winston, is if you could go ahead, whether it be for you personally or for Scream-a-geddon or both, share the social, share the website. How can people find out about Scream-a-geddon and get tickets and what the dates are, everything?
Yeah, so everything, all hours that we're open, ticketing, and sign up for our newsletter, all that type of stuff is just pretty simply at Scream-a-geddon.com. Follow us on pretty much all social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we promote. We like to do different contests on Facebook to kind of people that we have there to give out free tickets and things like that. So all of the big social medias, you can follow us there, but the home base is definitely Scream-a-geddon.com, and all the information's there. Awesome.
Thank you very much. And also, we'll be sure to put the website and so forth, and the links you just mentioned. We'll put that in our show notes so that our listeners can find it that way. Well, Winston, thank you so very much. I appreciate what you guys do as a horror fan, and I love the interactivity. I love the edgier haunts that Scream-a-geddon offers, and excited to do it this year and every year after. So thank you.
Thank you for letting me on the show. This was a blast.
Thank you, Winston, and thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate how a lot of these Fright Fests, or their haunted mazes or drive-through mazes, are kind of going with the way of giving the people a control over their surroundings. For me, that's like huge, because it really is I have control still of where I'm going, what I'm doing, who's coming up to me, who isn't coming up to me. It really helps, I think, with my anxiety and my empath of being around people, because I pick up on everybody else's emotions, so I can't decipher like what I'm actually feeling versus what somebody else is feeling. So for me, that is like a huge thing.
I think what I like about Winston's interview is that Scream-a-geddon, the people can be involved in the storyline.
Right.
So it's a great role play example where you are part of the adventure, and you have to wear a special lidded necklace around your neck to show that the actors know who can be involved, because they literally grab you, they literally throw you in a jail, they literally put you in a body bag, they really make you feel part of the experience. So it's all part of the role play experience, which a lot of parks can't really do, but they do it.
can kind of do it. I mean, they've talked about it in the previous interviews with Mr. Tucker, saying, you know, how they kind of involved the guests into certain things. I mean, even with that, I mean, they were saying they have a safe word and stuff like that. But it gives, for those people that are looking for that ultimate thrill of like, I want to be a part of this, it does give them that choice of, okay, here, go ahead and kidnap me from my group. Do whatever you're going to do.
Go ahead and put me in that body bag. Go ahead and throw me in that jail cell. I mean, put me in with some crazy nuts and stuff. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of people out there, they like that. They like being involved in that. They want to be like, they want to be part of that act. They want to be part of that adventure. And so I think that's very rare because I don't see a lot of places that do that, but Scream-a-geddon down in Florida gives you that opportunity.
Right. And I think it's awesome that they've hired on the scare actors that know what it feels like to be shot with paintball guns. So, like, it's not you shoot them and they're like, ow, oh, this hurts, I can't do it anymore. You know, They know what it feels like they've experienced.
Scream-a-geddon is the first one I've ever heard of that actually involves paintball, where you can shoot the zombies.
Right.
So I think that's kind of cool because I have not heard of any other, even independent haunts places offer paintball. We know laser tag, yes, but paintball is a first.
Right.
So, but anyway, this was a really good episode, and I really want to thank Winston for coming on and sharing with us about Scream-a-geddon. And hope you guys, if you're down in the Florida area, definitely go down and give them some love and check it out. I think it's really going to be really awesome. Plus, when I also go down to Florida, I might want to check that out as well. But anyway, guys, we're having a really good week. I hope you guys have a great weekend. But Justin, how can our listeners find us on social media?
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And if you want to see more from us, we upload every Friday. And check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all at Coaster Challenge. Links in the description.
Thank you, Justin. Yes, guys, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to follow us on all the social media channels that we have. We're on just about every social media platform you can find. And just make sure to, if you have any comments, make sure to send us an email at coasterchallengeusa@gmail.com. Thank you, guys. It's been a great episode. We got another exciting one next week, so make sure to tune in. And until then, this is David Cantu.
This is Jenna Gazelle.
And we'll see you all next week right here on Coaster Challenge.